The gymnasium fell silent as Darius Cole stepped onto the sparring mat facing Blake Turner. 3 inches of pure athletic confidence. Around them, 30 recruits watched with anticipation that tasted like cruelty. They'd been waiting for this moment since the scrawny, tired-looking 35-year-old black man had walked through the doors of the State Police Academy tryouts that morning. Blake cracked his knuckles, a predatory grin spreading across his face. He outweighed Darius by 40 pounds of muscle. He was younger by a decade. He had every advantage except one. He had no idea who he was really fighting. The lead instructor, Sergeant Martinez, raised her hand. Contact sparring, control, and technique. Begin. What happened in the next 3 seconds would shatter every assumption in that room. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. To the moment when everyone decided Darius Cole didn't belong. If you want to see how a father's quiet strength can silence a room full of doubters, stick with me until the end of this story. And please hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The morning had begun 3 hours before dawn, as it always did. Darius's alarm pierced the darkness at 4:15 a.m., pulling him from the shallow sleep that was all he could manage most nights. He silenced it quickly, listening through the thin apartment wall to make sure Malik hadn't stirred. 8 years old, and that kid could sleep through almost anything, a blessing Darius thanked the universe for regularly. The boy needed his rest. School was hard enough without adding his father's chaotic schedule to the mix. The apartment was cold. It was always cold. The heating system in the Riverside Commons complex had been under repair for 6 weeks, which was landlord speak for, "We're not fixing it unless the city makes us." Darius had complained twice politely, then given up. He had bigger battles to fight. He pulled on sweatpants and a faded Marine's hoodie, moving quietly through the cramped living room that doubled as his bedroom. The couch where he slept still held the indent of his body. Malik had the only bedroom, non-negotiable. A father could sleep anywhere. A boy needed his own space, especially one who'd already lost so much. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the kitchen with the one luxury Darius allowed himself: decent coffee. Everything else could be store brand, stretched, or skipped entirely. But coffee, that was fuel. That was survival. While it brewed, he stepped into the building's parking lot, where the streetlights cast orange pools across cracked asphalt. November in the city meant frost on windshields and breath that crystallized in the air. Darius welcomed the cold. It kept him sharp. He dropped into his first set of push-ups, counting silently. 50, then mountain climbers, then burpees that left his lungs burning. This wasn't a gym with mirrors and motivational posters. This was a father doing what needed to be done under stars that were fading into the gray promise of another day. By 5:30, he was showered and dressed in the navy blue uniform of Grandview Properties maintenance staff. By 5:45, he was gently waking Malik, who emerged from his bedroom like a small, sleepy bear. "Morning, bud," Darius said, already pulling out the cereal. "Big spelling test today, right?" Malik rubbed his eyes, nodding. 20 words. Miss Patterson says if we all get at least 15 right, we get extra recess." "Then you better get all 20, Darius said, sliding the bowl across their small table. "Can't let your classmates down." Malik grinned, that gap-toothed smile that could light up Darius's darkest moments. "I studied all of them. Want to quiz me?" They went through the words while Malik ate. Darius standing at the counter watching his son sound out necessary and occurrence with fierce concentration. This kid, this brilliant, resilient kid, was why everything else mattered. Every early morning, every sore muscle, every humiliation Darius would endure today. At 6:45, they walked the 3 blocks to Malik's school together. Darius carrying the boy's backpack because Malik liked to collect interesting rocks on the way, stuffing them in his jacket pockets until he clinked when he walked. "Are you working late tonight?" Malik asked as they approached the crossing guard. "Got training after my shift," Darius said, "but Mrs. Chen will pick you up and give you dinner." Okay, I'll be home by 9 o'clock. Malik's face fell slightly, but he recovered quickly. He was getting too good at hiding disappointment. The police thing? Malik asked. Yeah, the police thing. Are you going to be a cop, Dad? Darius crouched down, meeting his son's eyes. I'm going to try, Malik. That's all I can promise. But trying counts for something. Malik hugged him suddenly, fiercely, the way kids do when they understand more than you think they do. You're the strongest person I know. The words hit Darius harder than any punch ever would. He held his son for an extra second, then released him with a gentle push toward the school entrance. Go learn things. I'll see you tonight. He watched until Malik disappeared through the doors, then checked his watch. 7 minutes to get to the Grandview Towers property downtown. He started running. The day unfolded in its usual chaos. Broken washing machines in the building's laundry room, a clogged sink on the 14th floor. Mrs. Patterson, different. Mrs. Patterson, no relation to Malik's teacher, complaining about her garbage disposal for the 3rd time this month. Darius fixed it all with the same quiet efficiency he brought to everything. His asterisk, dark brown hands, asterisk, remembering skills from another life. His co-worker Danny found him at lunch eating a sandwich from home while sitting on an overturned bucket in the maintenance room. You really doing this police academy thing? Danny asked, popping open an energy drink that probably cost more than Darius's entire lunch. Tryouts start today, Darius confirmed. Man, that's intense. Those things are supposed to be brutal. My cousin tried out last year. Didn't even make it past the first physical assessment. I'll manage. Danny studied him with something between respect and confusion. You're what, 35? Most of these guys trying out are fresh out of college. 35, Darius confirmed. Still got some good years left. Oh, why now, though? You got a decent job here. Benefits, steady hours. Darius took another bite of his sandwich, chewing slowly. The truth was complicated. The truth involved insurance that didn't quite cover Malik's asthma medication, a landlord who kept raising rent, a future that looked like an endless treadmill of just barely enough. The truth involved wanting to give his son more than survival, wanting to show him that starting over was possible, even when the world told you your best years were behind you. But he didn't say any of that to Danny. Instead, he said, better opportunities, better future for Malik. Danny nodded, though Darius could see he didn't really understand. How could he? Danny was 23, lived with 2 roommates, spent his weekends playing video games and going to bars. He was a good kid, worked hard, but he didn't know what it meant to carry someone else's entire world on your shoulders. Well, good luck, man, Danny said. Hope you make it. Thanks. At 3 p.m., Darius clocked out, changed in the bathroom into the workout clothes he'd brought, and drove his 14-year-old Honda Civic across town to the state police training facility. His hands were steady on the wheel, but his heart was hammering. He'd been preparing for 6 months, ever since he'd seen the recruitment announcement. 6 months of pre-dawn training, of studying legal codes during his lunch breaks, a physical conditioning that left him so exhausted some nights that he fell asleep sitting up while helping Malik with homework. The facility was impressive, a sprawling complex of buildings surrounded by training fields and obstacle courses. The parking lot was filled with vehicles that made Darius's Civic look like a refugee from a junkyard. Trucks with lift kits, sports cars. One guy was climbing out of what looked like a brand new Mustang. Darius parked in the back row and walked toward the main gymnasium, following the signs for recruitment tryouts, Group 7. His stomach churned. Not from fear, exactly. From the weight of everything riding on this, from the knowledge that failure wasn't just personal, it was a broken promise to Malik. The gymnasium was massive with basketball courts that had been converted into a testing area, stations set up around the perimeter, bench press, vertical jump, agility course. In the center, sparring mats. Probably 50 people were already there, stretching, chatting, sizing each other up with the casual confidence of people who belonged. Darius found a quiet corner and started his warm-up routine. Slow, methodical, nothing flashy. He'd learned a long time ago that the body performed best when you didn't shock it. When you brought it online gradually, letting muscles remember their purpose. First time, Darius looked up. The guy addressing him was maybe 25. built like he lived in a gym with the kind of confident smile that came from never really being tested. "Yeah," Darius said. "Me too. Name's Blake, Blake Turner." He extended a hand that could probably crush walnuts. Darius shook it, matching the pressure without competing. "Darius Cole." "Military?" Blake asked, gesturing at the Marine's hoodie Darius had thrown on over his workout shirt. "Long time ago." "Cool, cool. My dad was Army. Always said Marines were crazy." Blake laughed like it was a joke they were both in on. "You nervous?" "Focused," Darius said. Right. Good mindset." Blake dropped down to do a set of push-ups, knocking out 50 like it was nothing, then popping back up without breathing hard. Showing off, but not maliciously, just the way young guys did when they wanted to establish the pecking order. Other recruits were filtering in. Darius noticed the demographics immediately. Mostly male, mostly under 30, mostly looking like they'd been athletes in college. A few women, all of them looking equally capable. Everyone seemed to know someone, forming clusters of conversation, sharing stories about training regimens and what they'd heard about the selection process. Darius remained apart, continuing his stretches. He caught eyes sliding toward him occasionally, assessing, dismissing. He looked different here, older, thinner, less polished. His workout clothes were faded from too many washes. His shoes were basic running shoes from a discount store, not the high-tech training gear everyone else seemed to be wearing. And in a room that didn't exactly look built for him, he kept his face neutral anyway, because he'd learned a long time ago that you didn't ask for permission to belong. You earned it. At precisely 4 p.m., a door opened and 3 instructors walked in. The room quieted immediately. The lead instructor was a woman in her 40s, compact and fierce-looking, with the bearing of someone who'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. Her name tag read SGT Martinez. "Listen up," she said, her voice cutting through the space without needing to be raised. "I'm Sergeant Martinez. This is Officer Grant and Officer Lowe. Over the next 3 days, we're going to put you through a series of assessments designed to evaluate your fitness for state police training. Some of you will advance to the academy. Most of you won't. Nothing personal. This job isn't for everyone." She paused, letting that sink in. "We're looking for physical capability, yes, but we're also looking for judgment, composure, integrity, and the ability to work as part of a team. The toughest guy in the room isn't always the best cop. The fastest runner isn't always the one who will have your back when things go sideways. Remember that." Darius felt something ease in his chest. She was talking to him whether she knew it or not. "We're going to start with baseline physical assessments," Martinez continued. "Bench press, vertical jumps, sprint times, agility course. These will establish where you are. Then we'll move into practical scenarios. And yes, there will be contact sparring. Controlled, supervised, but real. We need to see how you handle pressure and physical confrontation." She looked across the group, her gaze sharp. "Anyone have questions?" No one spoke. "Good. When I call your name, report to your first station. Let's get started." The next 2 hours were a blur of controlled chaos. Darius moved through the stations methodically, posting solid but not exceptional numbers. His bench press was respectable, 225 pounds for 8 reps, but several recruits put up significantly more. His sprint time was middle of the pack. His vertical jump was nothing special, but he didn't fail anything. And more importantly, he didn't burn out. He watched Blake attack every station like it was a personal challenge, maxing out on bench press until his arms shook, sprinting all out until he had to bend over, gasping between runs. Impressive, but unsustainable. Darius conserved. He knew he had 3 days to get through. Peak performance in hour 1 meant nothing if you couldn't function in hour 36. During a water break, he overheard a conversation between 2 recruits. "See that older guy, the skinny one?" "Yeah, what's his deal?" "No idea. Looks like he wandered in from a Planet Fitness." Quiet laughter. Darius drank his water, face neutral. He'd heard worse. He'd been worse. A scared 18-year-old trying to survive boot camp while drill instructors who'd forgotten more about suffering than he'd ever know broke him down to nothing. These were just kids talking. It didn't touch him, but it reminded him of the distance between where he was and where he needed to be. These recruits weren't his friends. They were competition obstacles between him and Malik's future. At 6 p.m., Martinez called everyone to the center mats. "Sparring assessment," she announced. "I'm going to pair you up. You'll go 3-minute rounds light to moderate contact. I want to see technique, control, and composure. This isn't MMA. You're not here to hurt each other. You're here to demonstrate that you can handle physical confrontation without losing your head." She started calling names, pairing people roughly by size and apparent experience. Then she said, "Blake Turner and Darius Cole." Blake grinned, slapping Darius on the shoulder. "Here we go, old-timer. I'll go easy on you." The room shifted, people moving to get a better view. Darius saw the anticipation in their faces. This was entertainment. The young athlete versus the aging wannabe. Everyone knew how this would end except Darius. He stepped onto the mat. Martinez handed him headgear and mouthguard. He fitted them carefully, taking his time while Blake bounced on his toes like a boxer, shadow punching to warm up. Martinez positioned herself as a referee. 3 minutes, controlled contact, demonstrate technique, not aggression. Ready? Both men nodded. "Begin." Blake came forward immediately, confident, hands up in a fighting stance that looked learned from YouTube videos. Good fundamentals, but textbook. No adaptation to his opponent. Darius circled, staying light on his feet, hands relaxed, watching. Blake feinted a jab, then threw a cross that had real power behind it. Darius slipped it, not blocking, just moving his head 2 in to the right. The fist whistled past his ear. Blake reset, surprised. Then a combination. Jab, cross, hook, fast, aggressive. Darius backed up, absorbing the pressure, reading the rhythm. Blake was strong, no question, and faster than Darius had anticipated. But he was also impatient, throwing full power on every strike, burning energy like it was unlimited. A leg kick came at Darius's thigh. He checked it, absorbing the impact through his shin. It hurt, but he didn't react. Blake pressed forward, sensing what he thought was timidity. He threw a hard, straight punch aimed at Darius's chest. That was the opening. Darius had been waiting for Blake to overcommit, to put too much weight forward to believe his own strength was enough. The moment the punch was fully extended, Darius moved. He redirected Blake's arm with his left hand, simultaneously pivoting his body to the outside. Blake's momentum carried him forward. Now off balance, Darius's right hand found the back of Blake's neck, controlling his posture. In the same fluid motion, Darius swept Blake's front leg, using the young man's own forward pressure against him. Blake went down hard, the air exploding from his lungs as his back hit the mat. The gymnasium went silent. Darius stepped back immediately, hands dropping, signaling non-aggression. He offered his hand to Blake, who lay there stunned, staring at the ceiling like he was trying to figure out what had just happened. 3 seconds. That's all it had taken. Blake took Darius's hand, allowing himself to be pulled to his feet. His face was flushed, equal parts embarrassment and confusion. "You all right?" Darius asked quietly. "Yeah," Blake managed. What the hell was that?" "Judo," Darius said simply. "You gave me your weight. I just borrowed it." Martinez was watching them carefully, her expression unreadable. "Continue," she said. The remaining 2.5 minutes were different. Blake approached more cautiously now, respect replacing cockiness. He was still the stronger fighter, still threw better combinations, but he wasn't treating Darius like a joke anymore. Darius defended, countered when opportunities presented themselves, but didn't dominate. That wasn't the point. The point was demonstrating control, composure, the ability to handle confrontation without ego. When Martinez called time, both men were breathing hard but uninjured. They touched gloves, a sign of mutual respect. As they stepped off the mat, Blake said, "Marines, huh?" "Long time ago," Darius repeated. "What'd you do? Military police force protection?" Blake nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "You've done this before. The real version, different context, same principles." The rest of the sparring matches played out, but Darius noticed the shift in how people looked at him. Now, the dismissive glances were gone, replaced by curiosity, assessment, maybe even wariness. At 8 p.m., Martinez dismissed them with instructions to return at 6 a.m. the next morning. As the recruits filtered out, Darius grabbed his bag and headed for the door, eager to get home to Malik. "Cole," he turned. Martinez was approaching, Officer Grant beside her. "Yes, ma'am." "That was good work today," she said. "Controlled, professional." "Thank you. How old are you?" 35. Grant whistled. "You know the average age of our recruits is 24. "I'm aware." "I'm not the typical candidate," Darius said carefully. Martinez studied him with those sharp eyes. "Why now? Why this?" Darius considered deflecting, giving some generic answer about serving the community. But there was something in Martinez's expression that demanded honesty. "I have a son," he said, 8 years old. His mother passed 3 years ago. I work maintenance and warehouse security, and I'm good at both, but the ceiling is low. I need something with better prospects. Something I can build into a career that'll give him stability, give him opportunities. "Single father," Grant said, not quite making it a question. "Yes, sir." Martinez exchanged a glance with Grant. "That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself." "It's the pressure I've got," Darius said, "so I work with it." There was a pause, then Martinez nodded. "See you tomorrow, Cole, 6 a.m. sharp?" "I'll be here." He made it home by 9:15, later than he'd promised. Mrs. Chen, their neighbor, had Malik fed and working on a Lego set in her apartment. The elderly woman waved off his thanks as always, refusing the $20 he tried to press into her hand. "Save your money," she said in her accented English. "That boy needs new winter coat. I see him shivering at bus stop." Guilt twisted in Darius's chest. Another thing he couldn't quite provide fast enough. Back in their apartment, Malik was wound up with questions about the tryouts. "Did you fight anyone? Did you win? Are they going to make you a cop?" Darius got him into pajamas, brushed teeth, the normal routine, answering questions in between. "I sparred with another recruit. Nobody wins in training. It's about learning. And I don't know yet if I'll make it. But today went okay." Tucked into bed, Malik looked up at his father with complete faith. "You'll make it. You're the best at everything." "I'm the best at loving you," Darius said, kissing his forehead. "Everything else is just details." After Malik was asleep, Darius sat on his couch in the dark, every muscle in his body reminding him that 35 was not 25. His shin throbbed where he'd checked Blake's kick. His shoulders ached from the bench press. Exhaustion sat on him like a physical weight. 2 more days, then the real selection process would begin. Then academy training, if he made it that far. Months of early mornings and late nights of pushing his body beyond what seemed reasonable for a man his age with his responsibilities. But when he thought about quitting, he pictured Malik's face, that gap-toothed smile, that absolute confidence that his dad could do anything. Darius couldn't afford to prove him wrong. He set his alarm for 4:15 a.m. and closed his eyes, already dreading the sound it would make in what would feel like minutes. But he would get up. He always got up, because that's what fathers did. The second day of tryouts began with scenario training. Martinez had set up multiple stations, each designed to test judgment and decision-making under pressure. Domestic disturbance simulations, traffic stop scenarios, active situation assessments. Recruits were paired up and run through situations where there were no clear right answers, only degrees of appropriate response. Darius was paired with a young woman named Sarah Kim, who moved with the controlled aggression of someone who'd done martial arts seriously. They worked well together, Darius naturally falling into a support role, letting Sarah take lead on scenarios where her faster reflexes were an asset, stepping up when the situation required de-escalation rather than confrontation. "You're good at talking people down," Sarah observed during a break. "Had a lot of practice," Darius said. "Try managing an apartment building where everyone's one broken pipe away from losing it." She laughed. Fair point. Lunch was provided, sandwiches and fruit that Darius ate mechanically while reviewing the afternoon schedule. More physical testing than advanced sparring scenarios. Blake found him sitting alone on the bleachers. "Hey, mind if I sit?" Darius gestured to the empty space. Blake settled down, unwrapping his sandwich with an almost embarrassed energy. "Listen, about yesterday, I was kind of a dick." "You were confident," Darius said. "Nothing wrong with that." "I assumed you'd be easy because you're older. That was stupid." "Experience counts for something." "Yeah, I'm seeing that." Blake took a bite, chewed thoughtfully. "Where'd you learn to fight like that?" "Marines, mostly. Then I kept training after I got out. Judo, some Muay Thai, boxing, whatever I could afford at community centers and rec leagues. Why'd you get out of the Marines? I mean, Darius was quiet for a moment. Got married. Wife wanted me to have a safer job. I was young enough to think staying stateside doing maintenance work would be enough. Then she got sick. Then she was gone. Now here I am trying to put pieces back together in a way that works. Blake nodded slowly. That's heavy, man. It's life. You adapt or you sink. You got kids? One. Malik, he's 8. Must be hard doing this with a kid depending on you. It's why I'm doing it, Darius said simply. They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Then Blake said, I hope you make it. Seriously, this academy needs more people who've actually lived life. Not just guys like me who think being strong is enough. Being strong helps, Darius said. But yeah, it's not everything. The afternoon testing proved Blake's point. The physical assessments were brutal. Rope climbs, weighted carries, obstacle courses designed to exhaust. Several recruits dropped out or failed to complete events. Blake excelled at pure strength events. Darius performed steadily across the board, neither dominating nor failing. But the final sparring scenarios were different. These weren't simple one-on-one matches. These were chaos simulations, multiple opponents, uncertain threats, situations designed to overwhelm and confuse. Darius found himself in a scenario with 3 other recruits facing 2 suspects played by officers in training gear. The situation, bar fight, multiple parties, determine who the aggressors are and secure the scene. It devolved into chaos within seconds. Recruits trying to physically dominate everyone. The suspects fighting back, shouting overlapping stories. Darius stepped back from the pile, raised his voice. Everyone stop right now. Something in his tone, command without aggression, cut through the noise. The recruits paused. The suspects paused. You two separate, hands where I can see them. Darius pointed to the suspects, then to his fellow recruits. Form a perimeter, give them space but maintain control. One suspect started protesting. That guy started it. He threw the first, I don't care who started it, Darius said calmly. Right now, we're ending it. You'll get your chance to tell your side. But first, everyone calms down. Martinez was watching from the sidelines, taking notes. The scenario concluded without further violence. Statements taken, situation de-escalated. It wasn't exciting, it wasn't heroic, but it was effective. Afterward, Martinez pulled Darius aside. Military police. Yes, ma'am. 8 years. It shows you've got good instincts for reading chaos. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow's the final day. That's when we really separate the candidates who can handle this job from those who just think they can. That night, Darius barely made it home before collapsing. Mrs. Chen had kept Malik again. Bless her. The boy was full of energy, wanting to wrestle, wanting to play, wanting his father's attention. Darius gave it, ignoring his body's protests, getting down on the floor for Lego battles and tickle fights until Malik was giggling so hard he couldn't breathe. Later, tucking him in, Malik said, Dad, what if you don't make it? The question hit Darius in the chest. Then I'll find another way to take care of us. I always do. But you want this, I can tell. Smart kid, too smart sometimes. I do want it, Darius admitted. But wanting something and getting it aren't always the same thing. What matters is that I try my hardest. That's all anyone can do. Malik thought about this. Miss Patterson says, trying your best is the same as winning. Miss Patterson sounds like a wise woman. Will you keep trying? Even if you don't make it this time. Darius smoothed his son's hair back, looking into those trusting eyes. Yeah, bud, I'll keep trying. That's what we do. We keep trying. Satisfied, Malik snuggled into his pillow. Okay, then you'll win eventually. If only life were that simple. Day 3 began at dawn, as it had to. The sun barely a promise on the horizon when Darius pulled into the facility parking lot. His body was a symphony of pain, muscles protesting, joints stiff, a deep exhaustion that went beyond physical. But he was here, still standing. The group that assembled was noticeably smaller. Several recruits had dropped out or been cut. Those who remained looked hardened, focused. The casual confidence of day 1 was gone, replaced by the grim determination of people who understood what they were fighting for. Martinez addressed them in the gymnasium. Final day. You've made it this far, which means you're all capable. But capability isn't enough. Today, we're testing your limits, mental and physical. We're going to push you until something breaks, and then we're going to see how you handle being broken. The first event was a team obstacle course, full gear, weighted packs. Recruits were divided into groups of 5 and told they would be timed as teams. Everyone finishes or no one finishes. Darius's team included Blake, Sarah, and 2 others he hadn't interacted with much. They had to carry each other through mud crawls, lift each other over walls, solve puzzles while exhausted. 2 hours in, one of their team members, a kid named Marcus, twisted his ankle on a rope swing. He went down hard, face twisted in pain. "I'm done," Marcus gasped. "I can't. You guys go ahead." Blake looked ready to agree. The time penalty for helping an injured team member would be massive. Darius crouched next to Marcus. "Can you put weight on it?" "I don't know. Maybe. It hurts like hell." "We're not leaving you," Darius said simply. He looked at Blake and Sarah. "We carry him. We finish together." Blake hesitated, then nodded. "All right, together." They fashioned a carry using their jackets, Marcus between them, moving slower but moving. The other teams passed them, finishing with better times. But Darius's team crossed the finish line with all 5 members. Martinez was waiting. She looked at Marcus's ankle, already swelling. "Medical tent, get that checked." Then to the others. That was the right call. Time doesn't mean anything if you abandon your team. The final assessment was back in the gymnasium. Individual scenarios designed to test ethics and judgment as much as physical capability. Darius's scenario: respond to a call about a juvenile shoplifting. The juvenile was played by a young officer who couldn't have been more than 20, instructed to be hostile and defiant. When Darius approached, the kid immediately went aggressive. "I didn't do anything. You can't arrest me. I know my rights." Darius kept his voice level. "I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here to figure out what happened. Can you calm down so we can talk?" "Screw you. This is harassment." It would have been easy to escalate, to meet aggression with authority, to physically control the situation because he could. Instead, Darius did something different. He sat down on the floor, making himself less threatening, and waited. The juvenile didn't know what to do with that. His hostility faltered. "Look," Darius said quietly, "I don't know what happened in that store. Maybe you took something. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you had a reason. If you did, all I know is that right now you and I are going to figure this out together in a way that doesn't make everything worse. Can we do that?" The kid's defenses cracked. My mom's birthday is tomorrow and I don't have any money, and I just wanted to get her something nice for once in my life." "So you took something?" A reluctant nod. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to return it. You're going to apologize to the store owner, and then we're going to see if there's a way you can work off what you tried to take instead of having this turn into charges. Sound fair?" You do that?" "I'd try. No promises, but trying is better than the alternative." Martinez called end scenario. The juvenile stood up, breaking character to shake Darius's hand. "That was really cool, man. Most people just go straight to intimidation." After all scenarios were complete, the recruits were told to wait in the gymnasium while the instructors deliberated. An hour passed, then 2. Exhaustion pulled at Darius, but he stayed alert, watching others fidget. Finally, Martinez emerged with a list. "When I call your name, come forward to receive your letter. If you're accepted into the academy, the letter will contain your start date and further instructions. If you're not selected, it will contain feedback on your performance and information about reapplying in the future." She started reading names, but Blake Turner. He walked up, received his envelope, opened it, and broke into a huge grin. Accepted. "Sarah Kim, accepted." The list continued. Some celebrations, some devastated faces. Darius Cole. He walked forward on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Martinez handed him the envelope, her expression neutral. He didn't open it. Not yet. Outside in his car with shaking hands, he finally tore the seal. The letter was formal, typed official. "Congratulations, you have been selected for State Police Academy training. Beginning..." He read it 3 times to make sure it was real. Then he drove home, letter clutched in his hand like a lifeline. Malik was at Mrs. Chen's. Darius knocked, and when his son appeared in the doorway, Darius crouched down to his level. "I made it," he said simply. Malik's face transformed with pure joy. He launched himself at his father, hugging him so tight, Darius's ribs protested. I knew it. I knew you would. Mrs. Chen appeared behind Malik, smiling. Good news. The best news, Darius confirmed. That evening, he took Malik to their favorite park, the one with the good swings and the creek where you could look for frogs. They sat on the swings as the sun set, rocking gently. What happens now? Malik asked. I start academy training in 2 weeks. It'll be intense, lots of long days, but I'll still be here every night. Still help with homework, still make breakfast. Will it be hard? Probably the hardest thing I've done. Malik looked at him with those old young eyes. But you won't quit. No, bud, I won't quit. They sat in comfortable silence, the park empty except for them, the sky turning purple and orange. Dad, Malik said eventually. Yeah? I'm proud of you. 4 words, simple words, but they landed in Darius's chest with the weight of everything he'd been carrying, everything he'd been fighting for. He pulled his son close there on the swings as darkness gathered. I'm proud of you too, Malik. Every single day. Later that night, after Malik was asleep, Darius sat on his couch with the acceptance letter on the coffee table in front of him. He thought about the journey ahead, weeks of academy training, field work, probationary periods. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever was. But for the first time in 3 years since the day they'd buried Malik's mother, and Darius had looked at his son and promised to be enough for both of them, he felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Not the desperate hope of someone grasping at straws, but the steady hope of someone who'd been tested and found strong enough, who'd been dismissed and proved worthy anyway, who'd been counted out and shown up regardless. He picked up the letter one more time, reading his name in official print. Darius Cole, State Police Academy candidate. Tomorrow he would return to his maintenance job, fix pipes and washing machines, be grateful for steady work while it lasted, but in 2 weeks he would walk through different doors, take on a different challenge, build a different future. For Malik, for himself, for the man he'd been fighting to become, even when no one else could see him. The man who'd stood on that sparring mat and proved that strength wasn't about size or age or how hard you could hit. It was about showing up, staying calm, making the right choice when the wrong one would be easier. It was about 3 seconds that changed everything. Not because they were flashy or dominant, but because they were controlled, precise, and true. Darius set the letter down and closed his eyes, already mentally preparing for what came next. In the bedroom, Malik slept peacefully, dreaming whatever 8-year-olds dreamed. And in the living room, his father kept watch, as he always had, as he always would. Because that's what strength really meant. Not power, not dominance. Just showing up day after day for the people who depended on you, even when everyone thought you were too old, too tired, too ordinary, especially then. The 2 weeks between acceptance and academy start date passed in a blur of preparations and quiet panic that Darius tried to keep hidden from Malik. There were forms to complete, background checks to clear, medical examinations that reminded him he was no longer the 20-year-old Marine who could run 5 miles without thinking about it. His knees creaked, his back occasionally seized. The doctor who signed off on his physical fitness gave him a look that said, "You sure about this?" without speaking the words aloud. Darius was sure, or at least he was committed, which amounted to the same thing. The hardest part was telling his supervisor at Grand View Properties that he'd be leaving. Mr. Henshaw was a decent man, overworked and underpaid himself, who'd given Darius steady hours and never asked questions when he occasionally showed up exhausted from his night security job. Police Academy, Henshaw said, looking up from the work order he'd been reviewing. That's unexpected. I know it's short notice, Darius said. I can work through the end of next week if that helps with the transition. Henshaw leaned back in his creaky office chair, studying Darius with tired eyes. You've been here, what, 4 years? 4.5. I never called in sick, never complained, fixed things right the first time. Henshaw shook his head. I'm going to miss having someone competent around here. Danny's a good kid, but he's not you. I appreciate that, sir. You got a family to support, right, kid? Yes, sir, 8-year-old son. Academy pay much during training? Darius had done the math approximately 700 times. It's a stipend, not great, but manageable, and once I graduate, the salary is significantly better than what I'm making now. If you graduate, Henshaw said, not unkindly. No offense, Cole, but you're not exactly spring chicken material. I'm aware of the challenges. Henshaw was quiet for a moment, then pulled out a business card and scribbled something on the back. Listen, if things don't work out, and I'm not saying they won't, but if you call me, I'll have a job for you. Maybe not this property, but I know people. You're too good at what you do to end up unemployed. The gesture landed heavier than Darius expected. Thank you, that means a lot. Yeah, well, Henshaw stood up, extending his hand. Good luck, Cole. Show those young punks what old guys can do. Darius shook his hand, managing a small smile. I'm 35, not 70. In this business, that might as well be ancient. But Henshaw was smiling too. The final days at Grand View were bittersweet. Danny threw him an impromptu goodbye lunch in the maintenance break room, sandwiches from the deli down the street, and a cake that Danny had clearly decorated himself with, "Good luck, Officer Cole," written in unsteady frosting letters. It's not official yet, Darius said, genuinely touched. I still have to graduate. Details, Danny said, grinning. You're going to crush it. And when you're some famous detective solving murders, remember us little people. I'm going to be a patrol officer, Danny. Not exactly glamorous. Still cooler than fixing toilets. Mrs. Chen hosted a small dinner the night before Academy started, inviting Darius and Malik to her apartment for what she called good luck food. Dumplings she'd made by hand, soup that smelled like comfort, rice that stuck together perfectly. Malik ate 3 helpings, delighted by the attention and the novelty of eating somewhere other than their small kitchen table. You be careful, Mrs. Chen told Darius as they were leaving, pressing a small jade pendant into his hand for protection. My husband wear this when he was a young man. Keep him safe through many hard times. Darius tried to refuse, knowing it must have sentimental value, but she closed his fingers around it firmly. Oh, you need it more than me now, she insisted. You have boy to come home to. You wear it. He wore it the next morning, tucked under his shirt as he drove through pre-dawn darkness to the State Police Training Academy for his first official day. The academy was located an hour outside the city, a sprawling campus of classroom buildings, dormitories, and training facilities that looked more like a small college than what Darius had expected. The parking lot was already half full when he arrived at 5:45 a.m. for a 6 a.m. start. He recognized several faces from the tryouts. Blake's truck was parked near the entrance, and he saw Sarah Kim walking toward the main building with the confident stride of someone who belonged. Inside the main hall was organized chaos. Approximately 60 recruits milled around, some looking nervous, others excited, all of them wearing the Academy-issued physical training uniform, gray shorts, navy blue t-shirt with State Police Academy printed across the chest. Darius had changed in the parking lot, his civilian clothes folded carefully in his gym bag. A voice boomed across the hall. Find your company assignment and line up. You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes to locate your name on a posted list, find the corresponding formation area, and get in line. It was designed to be stressful, to immediately establish that this wasn't a casual environment. Darius found his name under Company B, fell in line between a tall woman with her hair in a severe bun and a stocky guy who looked like he'd played college football. Blake was 2 rows back in Company A. Sarah was somewhere in Company C. At exactly 6 a.m., 3 instructors entered the hall. Sergeant Martinez was one of them, now identified as the Company B commander. The other 2 were men, one older, grizzled, with the bearing of someone who'd seen actual combat. The other younger, fit, with the coiled energy of a person, looking for an excuse to make everyone's life difficult. Martinez stepped forward. Welcome to the State Police Academy. For the next 24 weeks, this facility is your life. You will train here, study here, sweat here. Some of you will fail here. This is not college. This is not a job training program. This is preparation for a career where mistakes cost lives. She paused, letting that sink in. You are divided into 3 companies. Your company is your family. You succeed together or fail together. There is no individual achievement here, only collective excellence or collective failure. Is that understood? A ragged chorus of "Yes, ma'am" echoed through the hall. I can't hear you. Yes, ma'am. This time louder, more unified. Better. My name is Sergeant Martinez. I am your Company B commander. Everything you do, every decision you make reflects on this company. When one of you fails a physical test, the entire company runs. When one of you shows up late, The entire company does push-ups. You will learn very quickly to hold each other accountable. The grizzled instructor, Sergeant Thompson, Company A, stepped forward. Your schedule is posted in your dormitory wings. Meals are communal. Lights out is 2200 hours. Wake up is 0500 hours. You have exactly 45 minutes to move your personal belongings into your assigned rooms, change into appropriate uniforms, and report back here for orientation. Move. The stampede for the dormitory buildings was immediate. Darius grabbed his bag and followed the flow of Company B recruits to the East Wing, where room assignments were posted. He was paired with 3 roommates. The tall woman from formation, whose nameplate read Morrison, the football player type named Jackson, and a quiet Asian guy introduced as Chen. The room was Spartan. 4 bunks, 4 lockers, 4 desks, military-style efficiency. Darius claimed an upper bunk in the back corner, the position that seemed least likely to be disrupted by roommate traffic. Morrison eyed him as she unpacked. You're the older guy from Tryouts, the one who flipped Blake Turner. Darius Cole. He extended his hand. She shook it with a grip that matched his own. Kara Morrison, Army reservist, 6 years. You Marines got out 12 years ago, she said. What did you do between then and now? Maintenance work mostly, security, had a family, wife passed. It's just me and my son now. Her expression softened slightly. That's rough. How old? He's 8. Jackson, overhearing, whistled. Man, I can't imagine doing this with a kid at home. I'm barely managing my own life. You adapt, Darius said simply. Chen, who'd been quietly organizing his locker with precise, methodical movements, spoke for the first time. My father raised 3 of us alone after my mother left. It's not easy, but it makes you strong. The comment created an unexpected moment of connection. These 4 strangers suddenly sharing something real before the academy machinery swallowed them whole. 45 minutes later, they were back in formation, now wearing the standard academy uniform, navy blue cargo pants, light blue button-down shirt, black boots polished to a mirror shine. Darius had learned boot shining in the Marines. It came back to his hands like muscle memory. The orientation was comprehensive and overwhelming. Class schedules covering criminal law, constitutional law, investigative procedures, report writing, ethics, community policing, crisis intervention, physical training every morning before dawn, running calisthenics, defensive tactics, firearms qualifications, scenario training in the Academy's Mocktown, a full-scale replica of city blocks complete with storefronts, homes, and vehicles where they'd practice everything from traffic stops to active situation response. Your performance is evaluated constantly, Martinez informed them. Academic tests, physical assessments, scenario evaluations, peer reviews. You need to maintain minimum standards in all areas. Fall below standards in academics, you're out. Fail physical requirements, you're out. Demonstrate poor judgment in scenarios, you're out. This is not negotiable. She held up a thick binder. This is your Academy handbook. It contains every regulation, every standard, every expectation. You are responsible for knowing it. Ignorance is not an excuse. Each recruit received their own copy. Darius flipped through it that first evening, sitting at his desk in the dormitory while his roommates settled into their own study routines. The handbook was hundreds of pages of dense text, use of force policies, radio codes, arrest procedures, evidence handling, courtroom testimony guidelines. It was essentially learning an entirely new language while simultaneously conditioning your body to handle extreme stress. The first week was a brutal adjustment. Wake up at 5 a.m. for physical training, running in formation through the academy grounds while cadence was called. Calisthenics until muscle failure. Defensive tactics practice that left everyone bruised and gasping. Shower, breakfast, then classes from 8 a.m. to noon. Lunch, more classes, scenario training, dinner, mandatory study time, lights out at 10 p.m., 7 hours of sleep if you were lucky. Darius rarely was. Between studying and calling Malik every night, before bed, he averaged maybe 5 hours. His body running on determination and the institutional coffee that flowed freely in the dormitory common areas. The phone calls with Malik were simultaneously the best and worst parts of his day. The boy's voice, excited and full of stories about school and friends and the Lego spaceship he was building, reminded Darius why he was doing this. But the underlying loneliness, the way Malik would sometimes ask, "When are you coming home?" Even though Darius came home every night, that cut deep. "How's academy going, Dad?" Malik asked one evening about a week in. Darius was sitting on his bunk, body aching from a particularly brutal defensive tactics session where they'd practiced handcuffing techniques on each other for 3 straight hours. His wrists were raw from the practice cuffs. "It's challenging," Darius said, keeping his voice light. "Learning a lot." "Are you the best in your class?" "I'm holding my own. That's what matters." Billy at school said his uncle tried police academy and quit after 1 week because it was too hard. "Well, I'm not quitting." "I know," Malik's voice was absolutely certain. "You never quit anything." After they hung up, Morrison looked over from her desk where she'd been studying criminal code. "Your kid?" "Yeah, he's staying with our neighbor during the week. Comes home to me on weekends." "That's gotta be tough." "It's temporary, 24 weeks. Then I'll have better hours, better pay, better future for him." "You keep telling yourself that," she said, but not unkindly. "My reserve unit deployment was only 6 months, and my kids still remind me about it 5 years later." Chen, who had been reading silently in his bunk, added quietly, "They forgive you when they're older, when they understand you were doing it for them." "Voice of experience?" Morrison asked. "My father worked 3 jobs to keep us fed after my mother left. We resented him for never being around. Now I understand he was being around in the only way he could, making sure we had a future." The conversation drifted into comfortable silence, each of them processing their own versions of sacrifice and responsibility. The first major test came in week 3, the academic midterm covering everything they'd learned about criminal law and procedures. Darius studied until his eyes burned, reading statutes and case law by flashlight after lights out, memorizing the elements of different crimes, the constitutional requirements for search and seizure, the legal standards for use of force. The test was brutal. 50 multiple choice questions, 10 short answer scenarios, 2 essay questions about constitutional law. Darius worked methodically, drawing on years of maintenance work where attention to detail meant the difference between a functioning system and a lawsuit-inducing flood. Results were posted 3 days later. The passing score was 80%. Darius scored 89%. Not the highest in the company, that honor went to a former paralegal named Rodriguez, but solidly above the threshold. 3 recruits from the company B failed. They were gone by dinner, their bunks stripped, their lockers empty, as if they'd never existed. "That's cold," Jackson muttered, staring at the empty bed that had belonged to a recruit named Stevens. "That's reality," Morrison said. "Better to wash out now than 6 months into actual patrol work when someone's life depends on you knowing the law." The physical tests were equally unforgiving. Week 5 brought the first fitness assessment: timed run, maximum push-ups in 2 minutes, maximum sit-ups in 2 minutes, vertical jump, agility course. Standards were different for different age groups, but even with the age adjustment, Darius was fighting against recruits who were 10 years younger and naturally faster. The run was 3 miles in under 24 minutes. Darius finished in 22:47, gasping, legs screaming but under the threshold. Push-ups, he managed 63 when his arms finally gave out. Sit-ups, 78. Vertical jump was his weakest area, his 35-year-old joints not having the explosive power of younger recruits. Blake, running in the lane next to Darius during the assessment, finished the run a full 2 minutes faster, knocked out 90 push-ups without breaking a sweat, and jumped 6 in higher than anyone else in the company. But during the agility course, something interesting happened. The course required not just speed, but precision. Navigating around cones, crawling under barriers, climbing over walls, all while maintaining control. Blake was fast but sloppy, knocking over cones, having to restart sections. Darius was slower but smooth, completing each section correctly on the first attempt. When final times were posted, they were separated by only 3 seconds. Blake found him afterward in the locker room. "You're like a machine, man. You just don't stop." "Can't afford to," Darius said, toweling sweat from his face. "I heard some of the instructors talking. They're impressed with you. Said you've got the best tactical mindset in Company B. Tactical mindset doesn't mean much if I can't pass the physical requirements. You're passing everything. That's more than a lot of people can say. Blake sat down on this bench, pulling off his running shoes. I failed my criminal law midterm, had to retake it yesterday. Darius looked at him surprised. Blake had seemed so naturally confident, like everything came easily. I'm good at the physical stuff, Blake continued, always have been. But the book learning, that's harder for me. I've never been a great student. I passed the retake by 2 points, barely scraped by. That still counts as passing. Yeah, but... Blake hesitated. My whole life I've gotten by on being strong and fast. Here, that's just the baseline. Everyone's strong and fast. The stuff that really matters. Judgment, staying calm, knowing the law. I'm average at best. Darius sat down next to him. You know what I've learned in 3 weeks here? What? Nobody's good at everything. Morrison can outrun everyone but struggles with firearms. Jackson's an excellent shooter, but can't memorize statutes to save his life. Chen knows the law backwards and forwards, but barely passes the physical. We're all compensating for something. What are you compensating for? Everything, Darius said honestly. I'm older, slower, have less stamina. I'm studying twice as hard as everyone else just to keep up academically. I'm training on my own time to maintain the physical standards. I'm calling my kid every night and hearing the loneliness in his voice and wondering if I'm a terrible father for doing this. Blake was quiet for a moment. But you're still here. So are you. That's what matters. The conversation marked a shift in their relationship. Blake started asking Darius for help with academics, and they'd spend evenings in the study room going over case law and criminal procedures. In return, Blake pushed Darius during physical training, encouraging him through that last mile, that final set of push-ups, keeping him honest when his body wanted to quit. Bonds were forming across the entire company. Morrison became the unofficial den mother, keeping everyone organized and on schedule. Chen was the quiet genius who could explain complex legal concepts in simple terms. Jackson was the morale officer, always ready with a joke or encouragement when spirits were low. Week 8 brought scenario training in the Mock Town, a sprawling complex of facades and functional buildings where recruits practiced real-world policing. The scenarios were designed by instructors with decades of street experience and were brutally realistic. Darius's first scenario, domestic disturbance call, possible weapons involved. He was paired with Morrison as his partner. They received the dispatch over the radio while sitting in a patrol car, just like they would on actual duty. Unit 27 respond to 445 Elm Street for a domestic disturbance. Neighbors reporting loud arguing and possible sounds of breaking glass. Approach with caution. Morrison drove while Darius reviewed protocol. Domestic calls were statistically among the most dangerous for officers. Volatile emotions, confined spaces, uncertain threats. They approached the house, actually a furnished building with actors inside. Before they even reached the door, they could hear shouting. A man's voice angry, a woman's voice scared. Darius and Morrison positioned themselves on either side of the door, hands near their service weapons, training weapons that couldn't fire live ammunition but felt identical to real pistols. Darius knocked firmly. State police, we received a call about a disturbance. The shouting stopped. Footsteps. The door opened to reveal a man in his 40s, face flushed, clearly agitated. An actor playing a role, but playing it convincingly. What the hell do you want? The man demanded. Sir, we're responding to a call about a disturbance. Can we come in and talk to you? I don't have to let you in. This is my house. You're right, sir. We need your consent, but we need to make sure everyone inside is safe. Is there anyone else here with you? My wife, and it's none of your damn business. Behind the man, Darius could see into the living room. A woman sitting on a couch holding her arm. No obvious weapons visible, but plenty of broken glass on the floor. Sir, I can see someone appears to be injured. We just want to make sure everyone's okay. The man's demeanor shifted, becoming more aggressive. She fell, that's all. Now get off my property. He moved to close the door. This was the critical moment, the choice point where the situation could escalate or de-escalate based on the officer's response. Darius put his hand on the door, not forcefully, just preventing it from closing. Sir, I understand you're upset, but we can't leave until we've ensured everyone is safe. We can do this the easy way. You let us talk to your wife, we confirm everyone's okay, and we leave. Or we can do this the difficult way, which involves more officers, more questions, and a much longer night for everyone. Your choice. The man stared at him, anger warring with calculation. Then he stepped back. Fine, talk to her, but make it quick. Darius and Morrison entered carefully, Morrison staying near the man while Darius approached the woman on the couch. Up close, he could see her arm was red, but not seriously injured. She looked scared, but tried to hide it. Ma'am, are you all right? Darius asked gently. I'm fine, I slipped. Did your husband hurt you? She glanced at the man who was watching with Morrison beside him. No, it was an accident. Darius crouched down, lowering his voice. Ma'am, if you're in danger, we can help you, but we need you to tell us the truth. She shook her head firmly. It was an accident. Please, just go. Darius could see the fear in her eyes, the way she held herself, the subtle signs of someone living with violence. But without her cooperation, without evidence of a crime in progress, their options were limited. He stood up, addressing both of them. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to leave, but we're also going to file a report about this call. If we're called back here, the response will be different. Ma'am, if you need help, there are resources available. He pulled out a card, part of the scenario props, with hotline information. This is available to you anytime. The woman took the card with trembling hands. Outside, walking back to the patrol car, Morrison said, That felt like a lose situation. Most of them are, Darius replied. We can't force help on someone who won't accept it. All we can do is plant the seed and hope it grows. The scenario ended with Sergeant Martinez emerging from the observation room where she'd been watching on monitors. Cole, Morrison, good work. You de-escalated effectively, recognized the signs of abuse, provided resources, and didn't overstep your authority. In real life, that woman might call the hotline tonight or 6 months from now or never, but you gave her an option she didn't have before. More scenarios followed over the subsequent weeks. Traffic stops that turned dangerous, mental health crisis calls, juvenile delinquency situations, active situation drills, each one designed to test judgment under pressure to force split-second decisions that could mean life or death. Darius excelled at these. His age, his life experience, his years of navigating difficult situations with patience rather than force. All of it translated into the calm composure that made good officers. But week 12 brought his greatest challenge yet, firearms qualification. Darius had been an adequate marksman in the Marines, qualified expert on the rifle range, but never exceptional with a pistol. 12 years of not touching a weapon had dulled whatever skills he'd once possessed. The Academy's requirements were strict. Minimum score of 210 out of 300 points across multiple shooting distances and positions. The first qualification attempt, Darius scored 198, failed. He had 1 week to improve before the retake. Failure would mean dismissal from the Academy. That evening he called Malik, trying to keep the stress out of his voice. Hey, bud, how was school? Good. We're doing a project on the solar system, and I got to be Mars. That's perfect. Mars is cool. Are you okay, Dad? You sound tired. Too perceptive, this kid. Just a long day. I'm fine. You're doing good at Academy, right? Darius closed his eyes. I'm working hard. That's all I can do. After they hung up, Morrison found him sitting alone in the dormitory common room, staring at his Academy handbook without really seeing it. Heard you failed firearms, she said, sitting down across from him. News travels fast. It's a small company. Everyone knows everything. She studied him. You've got a week to improve. That's doable. I haven't fired a pistol in 12 years, Morrison. My hands shake now. My eyes aren't as sharp as they used to be. So we fix it. I qualified expert. I can help you. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Tomorrow morning, 4:30, we hit the range before PT every morning until you qualify. Why would you do that? Morrison leaned back, crossing her arms. Because when you got paired with me on that domestic call, you had my back. You made good decisions that kept both of us safe. That matters more than shooting scores. The shooting we can fix. Character that you either have or you don't. And you've got it. For the next 7 days, Darius and Morrison were on the range before dawn while the rest of the company still slept. She broke down his mechanics, his stance, his grip, his breathing, his trigger pull. Everything he was doing wrong accumulated from years of bad habits and muscle memory that wasn't serving him anymore. "You're anticipating the recoil," she said on day 3, watching him fire. "You're flinching before the shot breaks. That's why you're pulling low and left." "I know I'm flinching. I can't stop doing it." "Then we train it out of you. Dry fire practice, 1,000 repetitions until your hands remember what to do without your brain interfering." They did dry fire drills, practicing trigger press with an empty weapon, building the muscle memory of a smooth, controlled pull. Morrison had him balance a coin on the front sight, squeezing the trigger without making the coin fall. "Slow and steady," she coached. "The shot should surprise you. If you know exactly when it's going to fire, you're anticipating." Blake joined them on day 5, adding his own perspective. He wasn't as technically skilled as Morrison, but he had natural hand-eye coordination that Darius envied. "Stop thinking so much," Blake advised. "You're trying to be perfect on every shot. Just aim center mass and let it happen." By day 7, Darius could feel the difference. His groups were tighter. His confidence was building. His hands remembered what to do. The retake qualification was scheduled for Saturday morning. Darius barely slept Friday night, running through the course of fire in his mind. 7 yards standing, 15 yards kneeling, 25 yards prone, barricade positions, weak hand shooting. Malik called that evening as he always did. "A big test tomorrow?" the boy asked. "Yeah," Darius said. "A big one." "You're going to do great." "How do you know?" "'Cause you always do. You're my dad." Simple faith, uncomplicated belief. It settled something in Darius's chest. Saturday morning dawned cold and clear. Darius stood on the firing line with his service pistol, a Glock 17 that had become familiar through hours of practice. Martinez was the range officer, clipboard in hand, watching with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Shooters, load and make ready." Darius loaded 15 rounds into his magazine, inserted it into the pistol, chambered a round. The weight felt right now. The grip felt comfortable. From the 7-yard line on the whistle, fire 5 rounds into the center mass target. The whistle blew. Darius raised his weapon, found his sight picture, pressed the trigger 5 times in smooth succession. The pistol barked, recoil manageable, his stance absorbing the energy. 5 shots, 5 holes in the target center mass. They worked through the course of fire methodically. 15 yards kneeling, 5 rounds. 25 yards prone, 5 rounds. Barricade position, strong and weak side. Weak hand shooting, which still felt awkward but functional. 90 rounds total. Each one counted, scored, tallied. When the last shot was fired, Darius's hands were shaking, not from nerves this time, but from adrenaline and effort. Martinez walked down range to score his target while he waited, pistol pointed safely down range, trying to control his breathing. She returned with her clipboard, face expressionless. "Cole, final score, 224 out of 300. Darius's knees almost buckled. 224, 14 points above minimum. Not impressive by any standard except the one that mattered. He'd passed. "Well done," Martinez said quietly. "I know Morrison's been working with you. That's what good officers do. They help each other improve. Remember that." That afternoon, Darius drove home to spend the weekend with Malik, as he did every Saturday and Sunday. The boy was waiting at Mrs. Chen's apartment, and when he saw his father, he ran into his arms with the full-body enthusiasm of an 8-year-old who'd missed his person. "Did you pass your test?" Malik asked. "I passed." "I knew it," Malik said. "I knew it." They spent the weekend doing normal things. Grocery shopping, laundry, homework, playing in the park. Darius helped Malik build his Lego spaceship, following the complicated instructions with the same focus he brought to everything else. They cooked dinner together, spaghetti with sauce from a jar. Nothing fancy, but made special by Malik's insistence on stirring the pot himself. Sunday evening came too quickly. Darius tucked Malik into bed, reading him a chapter from the book they were working through together. "Only 12 more weeks," Darius said more to himself than to Malik. "Then you'll be a real police officer. Then I'll graduate. There's still a probationary period after that, but yes, essentially." Malik was quiet for a moment. "Do you like it? The academy?" It was a more complicated question than the boy realized. Did Darius like waking up exhausted every day? Did he like the constant pressure, the evaluation, the fear of failure? Did he like being away from his son for most of the week? But did he like the sense of purpose, the feeling of building towards something better? The knowledge that he was proving something to himself, to Malik, to everyone who'd ever counted him out. I like what it means for us, Darius said carefully. I like knowing that I'm working toward a future where I can give you more opportunities, more stability, more of everything you deserve. I don't need more stuff, Dad. I just need you. The words hit Darius like a physical blow. He pulled Malik close, hugging him tightly. You've got me, bud. Always, no matter what. Driving back to the academy Sunday night, Darius carried those words with him like armor against whatever the next 12 weeks would bring. Because Malik was right. At the end of everything, all the tests, all the training, all the struggle, what mattered was showing up for the people you loved. Darius had never been good at quitting. He wasn't about to start now. Week 13 arrived with the weight of accumulated exhaustion and the knowledge that they were now past the halfway point. The academy had a saying that circulated among recruits like dark humor. If you make it to week 12, you might actually survive this. Emphasis on might. The second half of training shifted focus from fundamentals to integration, taking everything they'd learned about law, tactics, physical skills, and judgment, then forcing them to apply it all simultaneously under increasingly complex scenarios. No more isolated tests. Everything was cumulative now. Darius felt it most acutely during the morning physical training sessions. His body, which had adapted somewhat to the relentless demands of the first 12 weeks, now faced a new level of intensity. Obstacle courses with full gear. Defensive tactics sparring that lasted 30 minutes instead of 10. Foot pursuits through the mock town where instructors played fleeing suspects, pushing recruits to their cardiovascular limits while maintaining enough mental clarity to make legal decisions about when pursuit became dangerous liability. One morning during week 14, Sergeant Martinez announced a change to the usual routine. Instead of company-based training, they'd be mixing all three companies for a major scenario exercise. This weekend, you're participating in Operation Crossfire, she said, standing before the assembled recruits in the main gymnasium. It's a 48-hour live-action simulation of a city experiencing multiple simultaneous critical incidents. You'll be divided into patrol shifts, working 12-hour rotations, responding to calls just like you would in the field. The scenarios will be realistic, unpredictable, and designed to test every skill you've acquired. A murmur ran through the formation. 48 hours straight. That meant minimal sleep, constant evaluation, pressure that wouldn't relent. You'll be scored individually and as teams, Martinez continued. Communication, decision-making, use of force, report writing, officer safety, everything counts. Some scenarios will have clear resolutions. Others will be deliberately ambiguous. Welcome to real policing, people. The preparation for Operation Crossfire consumed the rest of that week. Recruits reviewed protocols, studied legal standards, practiced radio communications until they could recite their unit numbers and status codes in their sleep. The nervous energy in the dormitories was palpable. Thursday night, Darius sat at his desk working through a legal scenario workbook while his roommates dealt with stress in their own ways. Morrison was running through hand-to-hand defensive moves in the small space between bunks, shadowboxing invisible opponents. Jackson lay on his bunk, tossing a tennis ball against the ceiling and catching it repeatedly, his version of meditation. Chen was silent as always, reading through statutes with the focused intensity he brought to everything academic. Darius's phone buzzed, a text from Malik, who was getting better at spelling and loved sending messages now that Mrs. Chen had shown him how. Dad, are you still awake? I can't sleep. Miss you. Darius glanced at the clock, 9:47 p.m. past Malik's bedtime, but he called anyway. Malik answered on this first ring, his voice small in the darkness. Hi, Dad. Hey, bud, what's wrong? Mrs. Chen said you were asleep an hour ago. I had a bad dream. Darius's heart constricted. What kind of bad dream? You didn't come home. I kept waiting, and you didn't come home. The fear in his son's voice cut deeper than any physical exhaustion. Malik, listen to me. I always come home. Always. Even if I'm late. Even if it takes longer than I thought, I always come home to you. Do you believe me? Yeah. But the word was uncertain. This weekend, I have a big training exercise. It's 48 hours straight, which means I won't be able to call you Saturday or Sunday. But Monday morning, first thing, I'll be there. I'll pick you up from Mrs. Chen's and we'll have breakfast together before school. Deal? What kind of breakfast? Oh, whatever you want. Pancakes, waffles, those disgusting sugary cereals I never let you have. That got a small laugh. Really? The sugar ones? One time, special occasion because I'll miss talking to you this weekend. Okay. Malik's voice was steadier now. Dad. Yeah. Are you scared about the big training thing? Darius considered lying, saying the thing parents said to protect their children from worry. But Malik deserved honesty a little bit. He admitted, it's going to be really challenging, but being nervous doesn't mean you can't do something. It just means you care about doing it right. You're brave, though. Brave people can be nervous. Where'd you learn that? Miss Patterson told us when we were worried about our spelling test. She said being brave means doing hard things even when you're nervous. Miss Patterson is a smart lady. They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. Malik's Lego spaceship, a kid at school who'd brought a pet lizard for show and tell, the weather turning colder, normal things, grounding things. By the time they hung up, Malik sounded sleepy and secure again. Morrison had stopped her shadowboxing and was watching Darius with an expression he couldn't quite read. Your kid? She asked. Yeah, bad dream. He's lucky to have you. I'm not sure he'd agree right now. I'm barely around. But when you are around, you're present. That matters more than hours logged. Morrison sat down on her bunk, pulling off her training shoes. My kids are teenagers now. When they were little and I was doing reserve weekends, they hated it. Cried every time I left. But now they tell people their mom serves. They're proud. Kids understand sacrifice eventually, even if they can't articulate it. Chen spoke up from his corner, rare for him to join personal conversations. My father worked 16-hour days for years. I resented him as a child. Now I work similar hours and understand what he was building for us. Your son will understand too. Jackson threw his tennis ball one more time, catching it with a decisive snap. Meanwhile, I'm over here with no kids, no responsibilities except myself. And I'm still terrified of this weekend. You guys are superhuman or something. Not superhuman, Darius said. Just motivated. Failure isn't an option when someone's counting on you. Friday evening, the recruits assembled in the gymnasium for final briefing and shift assignments. Darius was assigned to Charlie's shift, midnight to noon on Saturday. Then again Sunday midnight to noon Monday. The graveyard rotation, the hours when fatigue would be most dangerous, when judgment would be most compromised. His partner for the exercise was Blake Turner. Not Company B, not his usual training cohort, but the young athlete who'd become something like a friend over the past months. They'd be working a patrol sector in the Mocktown's residential area, responding to whatever calls came through. Blake found him after the briefing. Looks like we're together this weekend. Could be worse, Darius said. At least I know you've got the physical stuff covered. And you got the brains. Good team. They were issued equipment. Duty belts with training weapons, handcuffs, radio, baton, everything they'd carry on actual patrol. Body armor that added 20 pounds, patrol car assignments, report forms, everything designed to replicate real conditions as closely as possible. At 11:45 p.m. Saturday, Darius and Blake reported to their assigned patrol vehicle in the Academy's motor pool. The car was a decommissioned police cruiser, still equipped with computers, radios, light bars. Blake drove. Darius rode passenger. They logged on to the simulation's dispatch system. The radio crackled to life immediately. All units, Operation Crossfire is now active. Stand by for assignments. For the first hour, nothing happened. They drove slowly through the Mocktown's empty streets, familiarizing themselves with the sector, practicing radio communications. The waiting was part of the test. Could you maintain alertness when nothing was happening? At 1:23 a.m., dispatch broke the silence. Unit 7 Charlie respond to 2847 Riverside Drive for a suspicious person call. Caller reports an individual looking into car windows in the apartment complex parking lot. Blake acknowledged the call while Darius pulled up the location on their computer. Residential complex, 60 units, multiple points of entry and exit. They discussed approach strategy during the 3-minute drive. "We go in quiet, no lights," Darius said. "If someone's actually prowling cars, we don't want to spook them before we can make contact." They entered the parking lot with headlights off, scanning the area. Motion near a row of vehicles caught Darius's attention. "There," he said quietly. "Blue sedan. Someone's next to the driver's door." Blake positioned their vehicle to block potential escape routes while Darius called out on the PA system. "Police, stay where you are and show me your hands." The figure froze, then bolted. "Runner!" Blake was already moving, throwing the car in park and exiting in one fluid motion. Darius keyed his radio. "Unit 7 Charlie in foot pursuit. Suspect fleeing northbound through the Riverside Apartments complex." The pursuit lasted maybe 2 minutes, but felt eternal. The suspect, an actor playing the role, but playing it convincingly, was fast and knew the complex layout. Blake, younger and faster, led the chase while Darius followed, calling out positions on the radio, trying to maintain visual contact while not burning all his stamina in the first hour of a 12-hour shift. The suspect made a mistake, taking a turn that led into a courtyard with only one exit. Blake closed the distance while Darius blocked the escape route. The suspect, realizing he was cornered, put his hands up. All right, I give up." Standard arrest procedures followed. Blake handcuffed the suspect while Darius maintained cover. Weapon drawn, but not pointed directly. They found a screwdriver and flashlight in the suspect's pockets. Classic car prowling tools. Back at the patrol car, they ran the suspect's information through the computer, a fabricated identity with an outstanding warrant for theft. They transported him to the mock jail, processed paperwork, wrote reports. By the time they cleared the call, it was 2:45 a.m. They'd handled it well. Good communication, appropriate force, proper procedures. But it was just the beginning. The calls came steadily through the night. A domestic disturbance at 3:30 a.m. that required separating two actors playing an intoxicated couple, both claiming the other was the aggressor. A traffic accident at 4:15 a.m. with injuries, testing their ability to secure a scene and provide first aid. A burglary alarm at 5 a.m. That turned out to be a false trigger, but still required a full building search. Around 6 a.m., with dawn breaking over the mock town, fatigue started to set in. Darius could see it in Blake's face, the way his movements were becoming less sharp, his responses slightly delayed. He felt it himself, that heavy, sluggish feeling that came from being awake for 24 hours and still facing 6 more hours of duty. "Are you good?" Darius asked during a brief moment between calls. "Tired," Blake admitted. "This is harder than I thought it would be. The physical stuff I can handle, but making decisions when my brain feels like mush, that's rough." "That's exactly why they do it this way," Darius said. "Anyone can make good decisions when they're fresh and rested. Real policing happens at 3 a.m., on your 4th consecutive night shift when you haven't slept properly in days." The radio interrupted them. "Unit 7 Charlie, respond to 1500 block of Oak Street for a mental health crisis. Subject reportedly in immediate crisis." This was the call Darius had been dreading. Mental health scenarios were complex, emotionally charged, and had no guaranteed right answers. They required patience, empathy, and the kind of judgment that exhaustion made difficult. The scene was an apartment building. A woman in her 20s, another actor, but disturbingly convincing, was in a high-intensity crisis state. Neighbors had called it in. A small crowd had gathered below, watching with the morbid fascination that people brought to others' crisis. Blake looked at Darius, uncertain. "How do we handle this?" "Carefully," Darius said. "You clear the crowd. Establish a safety perimeter. I'll make contact." They split up. Blake moved the onlookers back, creating space. While Darius entered the building and approached the apartment, the door was open. He announced himself clearly. "Police, I'm here to help. Can I come in?" No response except continued crying from inside. Darius moved slowly through the apartment, hands visible, non-threatening. He didn't approach directly. Instead, he sat down just inside the doorway, making himself less intimidating. "My name's Darius," he said calmly. "What's your name?" The woman, her name tag identified her as Sarah, glanced back at him. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me. I'd like to know who I'm talking to." "Why? So you can talk me down? Save the day? I've had enough of people trying to fix me." Darius recognized the psychology at play. Anger masking pain, defiance protecting vulnerability. He'd seen it in himself during the dark months after his wife's death, when every well-meaning friend's attempt to help had felt like an intrusion. "I'm not here to fix you," he said honestly. "I can't fix you. Only you can do that. I'm just here to make sure you don't do something permanent to solve a temporary problem. You don't know anything about my problems." "You're right. I don't. But I know what permanent looks like. I know what it feels like to leave people behind." He thought about Malik, about the promise he'd made to always come home. "Whatever you're going through, it feels impossible right now, but feelings change. Situations change. Permanent doesn't." Sarah was listening now, still crying but engaged. "I lost my wife 3 years ago," Darius continued, not sure if sharing personal information was protocol, but trusting his instincts. "Cancer. She was 32, had an 8-year-old son who needed his mom. There were nights after she died when I didn't know how I'd make it to morning, when the weight of everything felt too heavy to carry." "So what did you do?" I got up anyway, made breakfast, got my son to school, went to work, did the next thing in front of me, even when I couldn't see past it. And eventually, slowly, the weight got lighter. Not gone, but manageable. I'm tired of managing. I know managing is exhausting, but I also know you deserve help that actually fits what you're dealing with. Not a cop with good intentions, but limited training. People who specialize in this. Let's get you connected to that. There was a long silence. Darius didn't fill it. Sometimes silence was the most important part of the conversation. Finally, Sarah's shoulders eased a fraction. "You promise someone will actually help, not just lock me up and forget about me." "I promise I'll make sure you get connected to people who specialize in this," Darius said. "That's the best I can offer." Blake appeared in the doorway, having secured the scene below. He looked at Darius with something like awe. "How did you do that?" "Talk to her like a person instead of a problem," Darius said simply. The scenario instructor, who'd been observing from a concealed position, emerged from a bedroom. "Outstanding work, Cole. Textbook crisis intervention. You built rapport, showed empathy, avoided escalation, and got the subject to voluntary cooperation. That's exactly what we want to see." The rest of the shift blurred together. More calls, more decisions, more tests of judgment and stamina. By the time they cleared at noon, Darius had been awake for 31 hours straight. He had a 4-hour break before his next shift started at 4 p.m. Not enough time to go home. Barely enough time to eat and maybe catch a combat nap. The academy had designated rest areas set up in the dormitories. Darius found an empty bunk, set an alarm for 3:30 p.m., and was unconscious within seconds. The alarm dragged him from sleep that felt more like a coma. Every muscle ached. His mind felt stuffed with cotton. This was the real test. Performing when your body was screaming for rest. When errors became easy and judgment became compromised. Sunday's shift brought different challenges. A simulated active situation response in the Mocktown school building that required coordinated response from multiple units. A hostage situation at a convenience store, a high-risk warrant service that went sideways when the suspect resisted violently. Through it all, Darius moved on autopilot, drawing on training that had become muscle memory. Blake was struggling more visibly. His youthful energy depleted, his decision-making slower, but they covered for each other the way good partners did. The final call of their final shift came at 10:47 a.m. Monday morning, less than 2 hours before the exercise would end. An officer needs assistance call, the most serious type. Another unit had stopped a vehicle with multiple occupants and the situation had escalated. All available units were being directed to respond. Darius and Blake arrived to find controlled chaos. 6 suspects on the ground in cuffing position. 3 other recruit teams trying to maintain control, everyone shouting over each other. One of the suspects was being combative. 2 others were yelling about their rights, and the recruits looked overwhelmed. Darius assessed quickly. Too many officers, not enough organization, everyone trying to do everything. "But Blake, take command," he said. "Get these teams organized. I'll handle the combative suspect." Blake hesitated for just a second. Then his training kicked in. He started directing the other recruits, assigning specific roles, bringing order to chaos. Darius approached the combative suspect. a large instructor playing the role with enthusiasm, cursing and struggling against the two recruits trying to control him. "Hey," Darius said firmly but calmly, "look at me." The suspect ignored him, continuing to fight. Darius crouched down to eye level. "Stop right now. You're making this worse for yourself." Something in his tone cut through the performance. The suspect stopped struggling, looking at Darius directly. "Here's what's happening," Darius continued. "You're under arrest. That's not changing, but you get to decide how uncomfortable the next 30 minutes are. Keep fighting and we'll have to use pain compliance techniques and additional restraints. Stop fighting and we'll process you professionally and with as much dignity as the situation allows. Your choice." The suspect considered this, then went limp. "All right, I'm done." Darius nodded to the recruits holding him. "Cuff him, standard procedure, stay professional." The scene stabilized. Blake had the other suspects properly secured and separated. Reports were being written. The situation that could have spiraled into disaster was resolved without injury or excessive force. At exactly noon, the radio crackled across all channels. "Operation Crossfire has concluded. All units return to base for debrief." The gymnasium was packed with exhausted recruits when Martinez took the podium. Her expression was inscrutable as she surveyed the assembled companies. "A circular 48 hours," she began. "Multiple scenarios designed to push you beyond your comfort zones and test every skill you've developed. Some of you performed exceptionally well, some of you struggled. Some of you failed in ways that would have gotten real people hurt or killed in the field." She paused, letting that sink in. "But most of you demonstrated that you're learning. You made mistakes, but you also made good decisions under pressure. You showed judgment, compassion, tactical awareness, and the ability to function when your bodies were telling you to quit." She started calling out specific scenarios, highlighting both successes and failures without naming names. The mental health crisis intervention Darius had handled was mentioned as an example of excellent communication. The active situation response was cited as showing good coordination under extreme stress. Finally, she said, "Individual evaluations will be posted tomorrow. For now, you have the rest of today and tomorrow off. Go home, sleep, recover. When you return Wednesday, we begin preparation for final examinations." The word final hung in the air like both promise and threat. 8 weeks left, then graduation, then the real work would begin. Darius drove home in a daze, his body operating on fumes and force of will. He texted Mrs. Chen during the brief break Sunday, letting her know he'd be late picking up Malik on Monday. She had assured him it was fine, that the boy was doing well. When he arrived at her apartment, Malik was doing homework at her kitchen table. The boy looked up and his face transformed with joy. "Dad!" Darius caught him in a hug that probably lasted too long, but felt necessary. "Hey, bud, sorry I'm so late. Mrs. Chen said you were saving the city." "I was training to save the city," Darius said. "There's a difference." Malik pulled back, studying his father's face. "You look really tired." "I am really tired, but I promised you breakfast, didn't I? It's almost lunchtime now." "Then lunch it is. What do you want?" They ended up at the diner down the street, the one with the cracked vinyl booths and the waitress who knew them by name. Malik ordered a grilled cheese and fries. Darius ordered coffee and toast, his stomach too unsettled for anything heavier. Malik talked about his weekend. The Lego spaceship was finished. He'd gotten an A on his spelling test. There was going to be a field trip to the Science Museum next month. Normal kid things that felt impossibly precious after 48 hours of simulated emergencies. "Did you do good on your big test?" Malik asked eventually. "I think so. Won't know for sure until tomorrow, but I feel like I did my best." "Sometimes that's all you can do," Malik said, nodding seriously, processing this wisdom the way 8-year-olds did, accepting it as absolute truth because it came from his father. That night, after Malik was asleep, Darius sat in his usual spot on the couch, Mrs. Chen's jade pendant still around his neck, and thought about the weekend, about the calls he'd handled, the decisions he'd made, the moments where training had taken over and carried him through when conscious thought was too slow. He thought about what he'd said about getting up every day and doing the next thing, even when you couldn't see past it. That's what he'd been doing for 3 years now, getting up, doing the next thing, trusting that eventually the path would become clear. The academy evaluations were posted Tuesday afternoon. Darius logged into the online portal with his heart hammering, pulling up his individual assessment. The document was comprehensive. Scores for every scenario, written feedback from observing instructors, overall performance ranking within Company B. Mental health crisis intervention, 98 out of 100. Comments. Exceptional empathy and communication de-escalated successfully through rapport building rather than force. Exactly the approach we want officers to take. Active situation response, 87 out of 100. Comments. Good tactical awareness and team coordination, minor communication delays during initial entry. Vehicle stop support, 92 out of 100. Comments. Excellent command presence brought order to chaotic scene through calm direction. His overall score for Operation Crossfire, 91 out of 100. Ranked third in Company B, top 15% across all three companies combined. Darius stared at the screen, reading the numbers again to make sure they were real. Third in his company, top 15% overall. He'd not just survived the exercise, he'd excelled at it. His phone rang, Blake's name on the caller ID. "Did you see the scores?" Blake asked without preamble. "Just pulled them up." 91. "Man, that's incredible. I got an 83, which I'm happy with, but you crushed it." "Team effort, you did great. Listen, a bunch of us are getting dinner tonight to celebrate making it through. You should come." Darius glanced at Malik's bedroom door, closed but with light visible underneath. The boy was reading before bed. "I can't. I've got Malik." "Bring him. We're just going to that pizza place near campus. It's not like we're hitting bars." The idea of being social, of celebrating, felt foreign after months of just grinding through each day. But maybe that was exactly why he should go. Maybe Malik deserved to see his father as more than just an exhausted person constantly pushing toward the next goal. "Yeah," Darius said. "Okay, we'll be there." The pizza place was loud and crowded with academy recruits who'd survived the weekend and wanted to decompress together. Blake had reserved a large table, and it was already packed with familiar faces. Morrison, Chen, Jackson, Sarah Kim, others from various companies who'd bonded through shared suffering. Malik was initially shy, clinging to Darius's side, but Morrison won him over immediately. "So, you're the famous Malik," she said, crouching down to his level. "Your dad talks about you all the time." "He does?" Malik looked up at Darius, surprised and pleased. "All the time," Morrison confirmed. "All the time. He says you're smarter than half the recruits at the academy." "I'm only 8, Malik said seriously, "but I'm pretty good at math." The evening became something Darius hadn't experienced in months. Casual, relaxed, normal. The recruits swapped stories about the weekend scenarios, laughing about mistakes and near disasters that hadn't seemed funny at the time. Malik ate pizza and listened with wide eyes as Blake told an exaggerated version of the foot pursuit, making Darius sound like an action hero. "Your dad's like the calm one," Blake explained to Malik. "When everything's going crazy and everyone's freaking out, he's just standing there like, okay, here's what we're going to do." And suddenly, everything makes sense. Malik beamed with pride. "That's how he is at home, too. When I get upset about stuff, he always knows what to do." Chen, sitting across the table, caught Darius's eye and nodded slightly. A gesture of respect between fathers who understood the weight of being someone's entire world. Driving home later, Malik was unusually talkative, energized by the evening out. "Your friends are nice," he said. "They really like you. They're good people. Are you going to work with them after you graduate?" "Probably not. We'll get assigned to different departments, different areas, but we'll stay in touch." Malik was quiet for a moment, then said, "I'm proud of you, Dad, for doing this. I know it's hard." Darius's throat tightened. "Thank you, bud. That means more than you know. 8 more weeks, right?" 8 more weeks. Then everything will be better. Darius wanted to promise that, to say yes. Graduation would solve everything, make life easy, erase all the struggle, but he'd learned not to make promises he couldn't keep. "Then we'll be in a better position," he said carefully. "Still challenges ahead, but different ones, better opportunities." "That's good enough," Malik said with the simple acceptance of a child who trusted his father's judgment completely. That night, after Malik was asleep, Darius pulled up the academy portal one more time, looking at those evaluation scores. Third in Company B, 91%. commendations for empathy, judgment, leadership. He thought about the version of himself who'd walked into tryouts 4 months ago, dismissed, underestimated, counted out before he'd even begun. That man had proven them all wrong, not through dominance or flash, but through steady, consistent excellence. Through showing up every day and doing the work, even when his body hurt and his heart ached for more time with his son. 8 weeks left, then graduation, then probationary period, then finally the career he'd been building toward. The stability, the security, the future he'd promised Malik. The path was clearing, the goal was visible. And asterisk, Darius Cole, asterisk, 35 years old and carrying the world on his shoulders, was going to finish what he'd started. Because that's what he did. He never quit. And Darius Cole, standing in his small apartment with his son, sleeping safely in the next room, had kept that promise. He'd kept every promise that mattered. And that finally was